Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel. And tonight I want to show you a few books that we own to do with the WI. For those that don't know, the WI stands for the Women's Institute, and amazingly Helen is a member of two WI groups. One is St Peter's and the other one is the Worcester Bells. So the main, well I say main, one of the city centre based WIs in the area. What you have to remember is the WI started in Britain in 1915. However, it has origins going back to Canada a long time before that. And it's quite interesting because when we think of the WI, we often think of Jam in Jerusalem. We think of a village green. We think of a school fete or a village fete, and there'll be a marquee and you will find a tea tent, and that would be run by the WI. But the interesting thing is the WI is more than that. Now, all I want to talk about this evening is the books that we have on the WI, whereas in a future video, we could probably do one on the history of the WI, because interesting fact, we actually do a talk to a lot of WI groups about the history of the WI. And when we think of the WI, we must stop thinking village fates, Jam, Jerusalem, because like I said, the WI is more than that. So here's a few books that we use to research the history of the WI prior to us doing the talk. And these are fantastic books and I would recommend you get hold of them and have a flick through. So to start with, if you think of the WI as a national or international organisation, then the best books to look at really, especially in relation to Britain, is the following. Now, this is quite a basic book, and the first one I'm going to show you is actually called Jam in Jerusalem, and it says a pictorial history of Britain's greatest women's movement. And it's interesting because when you look at the WI, especially when it came to Britain in 1915, it was just after the suffragettes had actually openly, at the start of the Great War, said that they were having an armistice as such, that they would not be demanding votes for women or anything like that. So in 1915, 1 year into the war, the WI was born in Britain, but like I said, started in Canada originally. But this book talks about the greatest women's movement in Britain, and it's full of pictures, and that's one of the reasons why we bought this book. Not that we like books with pictures in, but if you want really good pictures, for example, you want to say a picture paints 1,000 words, this is probably the book to get, really. And it's just full of interesting pictures. And the main thing is, when the WI actually started, they started in the First World War literally for rural women. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go into detail about the history, but they started for rural women only. And nowadays there's even university WI groups, including ones like the Worcester Bells, that are based in the city centre. The book's full of pictures and it shows lots of images of things, for example, small scale allotment gardening, because you have to remember in 1915 we were starting, not quite fully yet, but we were starting to get problems with supply, and the WI gave advice on how to, what we would now call in the Second World War, grow your own, dig for victory, that sort of thing. So in the First World War, they were encouraging people to grow their own food, and they were really into lots and lots of allotment gardening and that type of thing. They also then went on after the war to help with all sorts of things to do with rural affairs, for example. One of the most amazing things, I think, factual wise, about the WI is when we think of Keep Britain Tidy, that was another one of their campaigns as such, really. So, as I said, this book, full of lots and lots of pictures, showing the history of the WI from start to finish. And like I said, it actually got a feel about it of a school textbook, really. That's what it feels like. It's a nice basic book to give you an understanding of the chronological sequence of the WI. But then there are lots of other books, including one of the most well known, which I think has got a fantastic title to it, A Force to be Reckoned With. And this is The History of the Women's Institute by Jane Robinson. So this is more of an academic work, not too academic, I will say, but it covers the history of the WI. But it's like your typical academic book. Lots and lots of writing and less pictures. And as I said, it's good to have the pictures to see them doing their thing, what WI do. And then it's also good to have something which is a bit more wordy that goes into a bit more detail about their history. One of the most recent books that was wrote actually came from someone that works at Worcester University called Maggie Andrews, who is one of the lead lecturers there. And she wrote this one called The Acceptable Face of Feminism. And there's a funny story with this one. I was reading this when we were going to an event. Helen was driving, by the way, and I was sat there reading away. And it was only when I looked up when we were stuck in traffic that a lorry driver was looking down from his cab into the car and probably wondered why I actually had this book. And I was really engrossed by it, reading into it. Probably because he could read, it says The Acceptable Face of Feminism. Not the sort of book he would expect me to be reading. But I must say, the WI has a fascinating history. If you want to, let us know if you want us to do the history of the WI on here. We'd have to do it in individual sections to try and keep it within 15 minutes. And if there is anyone out there that's a member of the WI, please make sure you go on our website. And if you go under the website under talks, for example, our presentations, you will see we list the history of the WI as one of the topics that we talk about. We are actually at the moment missing visiting WIs and all the other groups, because I must say, outside our school in living history work, the other biggest thing that we get involved with is talks. We do endless talks, be it in the morning, the afternoon or evening. If you get a chance though, have a look on our website, www.discover-history.co.uk. And if, like I said, you are a WI, have a look at what talks that we offer. We offer lots of them, including this fascinating topic of the history of the WI. Bringing it closer to home, as we often say, Worcester is linked to everything. Bringing it closer to home, we've got some local books that are absolutely fascinating, given the local view of the Women's Institute. For example, we've got this one, which is actually one of the older ones that I've got, Worcestershire Within Living Memory, and this was compiled by the Worcestershire Federation of Women's Institutes. And you have to remember this, the Women's Institutes have individual little branches, shall we say, like Worcester Bells, like St. Peter's WI, but the Worcestershire Federation is the ones that are the umbrella organisation of the higher up echelon of the Women's Institute. It's all broken down. It's very much like Royal British Legions and that sort of thing. So that's a fascinating book as well. But then to get it even more in depth on, for example, Worcestershire WI, I would recommend this one, which is a very, very popular one. Very hard to get. I don't even think it's in print anymore. So look in charity shops. That's what we often do to try and track old books down. And this is Madam President, Fellow Members. And as you can see, it's got the Worcestershire 3 pairs on the cover there. And it's an interesting badge because famously it is said that archers at Agincourt fought under a 3-paired banner. It's the county cricket ground badge, and famously if you look at Worcester City, it has it as a coat of arms, and most people will say the legend has it that Queen Elizabeth I gifted them to the city when she visited on August the 13th 1575. Now this is an interesting book, and I will draw your attention to a little peculiarity. Not many of them were wrote, and it covers the history of the Women's Institute in the county between when they first started up in Worcestershire up to when this was made. And this was made in 1980. And it's funny because when they had these printed, they came famously with a sleeve on. The only problem is they had made an error. They had made a spelling error. Now, you won't find a spelling mistake on the front there, but the spelling error on the sleeve actually happened on the spine, and they actually put an E at the end of Madam. Now, if you don't believe me, what the WIs in Worcestershire had to do is take the sleeves off, and they were thrown away, cast away. But the problem is, as you can see, it's been embossed. So there's going to be an error. Now there's no error on the front, so that's no problem whatsoever. But if you have a look on the spine, I don't know if you can see it from there, but you will see Madam, and there is a scratch on the spine. I don't know if you can see that from where you are. And that's because they had to scratch out by hand the E off the spine. And I think that's absolutely fascinating. That makes that little book a talking point in its own right. So this came out, and it really covers the chronological era of the Worcestershire WIs up to about 1980. So that's when this book came out. So it covered the early years of the WI. And then relatively recently, during the centenary of the WI, they brought out this one. And like I said, we like to stay up to date. And this is the updated version. And this covers, as it says, opening doors, a centenary celebration. And this covers basically where that book left off. So that covers the early years, and that covers it right up to the centenary, including 2018, comparing it with 1918. And what I think is fascinating about this book is it doesn't just continue where the other book left off. Each WI within Worcestershire was allowed to add their own little page. So there is often a photograph of the WI, the members, for example, and it covers what they've been up to in relatively modern times. And it is nice because we could almost get a pencil, go through this book and tick off all the WIs that we've actually been to over the years. I personally think the WI, the Women's Institute, is a fantastic organisation, and I almost feel that I should be an honorary member. I feel like an honorary member, and I've been to a few meetings in also social outings with Helen's WIs, and I think they're absolutely fantastic. They've got a long history, and like I said, if you want us to do the history of the WI, please let us know by commenting on here or commenting on our social media platforms that this video will go on, so Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and we can cover it because it is fascinating. Lots and lots of good came out of the WI. They're not just Jam in Jerusalem. They've done all sorts of things. And like I said, one of the most amazing things I think of is throughout my childhood, I always used to remember Keep Britain Tidy, and I never ever thought that it was a campaign that was started by the WI. I always thought it was just a government thing, for example in the 80s, to keep Britain tidy for a change, but it was actually started by the Women's Institute. So like I said, if you're interested in very local history of the Women's Institute, they're the two books to get really. That I don't even think's in print anymore, but look out for it. That's the early years, followed by the up-to-date version. If you're interested in County Tales, for example, that's the one to have, and that was created by the Worcestershire Federation of WIs. And then, like I said, there's some meatier books. And remember, these are not the only books. There are endless amounts of books about the WI. These are just the ones that we own at the Discover History headquarters. And like I said, a nice one, which has got lots of pictures in a nice overview and a chronological look at the Women's Institute, is that one. And it really paints a picture of where it all began. So hopefully you've enjoyed that little short video on the books that we own on the WI. If you want us to do anything on the WI, let us know. We're quite happy doing a 15-minute video, possibly breaking it down into stages because it is quite a big topic to cover in about 10-15 minutes. Anyway, on that note, hope you're enjoying the weekend and staying warm, stay in and stay safe. See you soon. Bye-bye.